Welcome to the Egality Law Podcast. Egality Law is a law firm with offices in London and Accra, Ghana, specializing in various aspects of corporate, commercial, and media law, including intellectual property, which is the subject of our podcast series. Our podcast will focus on various aspects of intellectual property law, looking at the issues that arise in multiple disciplines across the creative industry. And now, over to the principal of Egality Law, Korea Dodu.
In this first podcast, we're going to be looking at the issues in the photography industry. And I think quite fittingly, we've been joined with great privilege by one of our very first clients in Ghana, Mr. Yao Pare. So to a lot of people in media, social media with an interest in photography, Yao really needs no introduction. He's a self-taught Ghanaian photographer and filmmaker with a passion for showcasing Ghana, its heritage to the world in a more challenging light. And actually, I stole that from your Twitter page, so please don't sue me for breach of copyright. We're also joined by Stephen Adusei, who is also a professional photographer and a leading event photographer, well known for wedding and other types of commissioned photography. Stephen's company, Fusion 360, was founded over 20 years ago, 1999, originally focused, I think, on graphic design and web design, but has since branched out. And now Stephen is one of Ghana's most acclaimed professional wedding and event photographers and has been for the last 15 or 20 years. Great to have you on our program this morning. Also with us this morning is Victoria Durbin, who is a senior associate in our firm and specializes in intellectual property law. Victoria is also an adjunct lecturer at GIMPA, where she lectures in intellectual property law. Great to have you on our podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Great. So let's jump into our first topic of discussion. Actually, Yao, I'm just fascinated to know what your very first gig was as a photographer.
Well, thank you for having me, Corey. And I wouldn't know exactly which one it was that sticks to mind as my first gig, because the gig could be, was it a free gig or a paid gig?
Take your pick.
So I think my getting into, let's say, professional photography happened after a stint with a job that my pay wasn't coming on time. So I decided to take my hobby seriously. So I think after the first 3 weeks that I went into photography, actually I posted that I'm going to do photography. It looks like a bandwagon of people were waiting for me to say that. So I got a lot of gigs in the 3-week period that probably was like 4 months pay in 3 weeks. So that's what really like, oh, wow. So I've been sitting on my own gold for so long. So that's how it started. And this was 2016, thereabout. Wow. Yeah.
Stephen, as I see it, you are a professional commissioned photographer. You bring teams of professional photographers to major events. You're essentially commissioned. It might sound a lot simpler how you monetize, but I don't think it is really. Do you want to tell us a bit about how you monetize your art?
Most of the contracts, again, they are contracts and like assignment. So even if you're shooting a wedding, they come to you, my wedding is on this day, I need a photographer for that day. Then you bring out the contract and most of the conditions and terms in there, I mean, you go through. If everything is fine, then we sign, and then that's it until the day. So on that day, I deliver as the contract says, and then the final image is given to the client. So afterwards, as per the contract, I can select some and post on my Instagram or Facebook and stuff like that. These are marketing, let's say marketing tools that I will use to get more jobs. But the pictures themselves or the product, I've collected the money already, so I can't do much. I can't sell them again. So that's it. That's the end for that.
I used to post my pictures with no watermarks. I was just, it was a hobby. Then an incident happened when a friend of mine, supposedly, who was abroad, took one of my pictures. And the annoying part was he would name the location, because it was sceneries. He'll name the location in a wrong place. Let's say it's Koforidua, he says it's Malata Market, something funny, you know. And I was like, dude, you can't be, this is misinformation. So it's like, I said, it's my picture. I said, he asked, what do I care? I said, it's my picture. So really, it's like, where's your name on it? I was like, oh, really? You knew I took this picture. It's like, where's your name on it? So that's when it's like, okay, if I don't have proof that it's my property, then anybody can take it and just use it for whatever reasons. He said he found it on Google. So that's when it occurred to me that it's very important to protect it. So I got a logo done, then was turned into a watermark that I posted on each and every picture that I take. I'm very specific. It's kind of part of my trade because I kind of put it in places that is not so obscuring the picture. Sometimes it's hidden in the image, so people would take it and don't know exactly that it's actually a photograph with a watermark. And when they steal it, I'm like, there it is, you know. So yeah, and it's a lot of work.
Stephen, are there any other ways in which you seek to, first of all, protect your rights in the image, the images that you take? I mean, presumably on a lot of your photos, you can't use watermarks because you're commissioned. So how else would you seek to protect them and prove that they're yours?
Metadata, because like he's saying, people can take off watermarks. Every time you take a picture, there is this data that's recorded with the image. So it's the camera you use, the model, the serial number of the camera, the lens, the serial number of the lens, the settings you used, the date, time. If you put in the owner of the camera, your name and your email address, everything is stored on every photo. Digitally. In most of the modern cameras, the location where you were at the time you were taking the picture. Now, most of the social media platforms, they strip the location off so that someone can take it and trace it back, you know, for security reasons. Yeah. But settings like maybe your name and the settings and stuff like that, you can retain some of them when you're posting.
So in a nutshell, you'd recommend to young photographers, those who are coming up in the industry, use watermarking and learn how to use the metadata in your photos, because that's going to be really two very valuable ways of proving they're yours.
The metadata is basically automatic when you take the picture, but then you can enhance it by labeling the image to your name, because they give you the opportunity on your camera settings to say, oh, it's YP, then image, then it gives you a number, like a serial number on that. So, but it's important for them, if you want your stuff protected before somebody takes it and runs with it, just get a watermark put on there.
But Victoria, copyright is one aspect of intellectual property. Should we actually just remind ourselves what intellectual property is and what the different types of IP are?
So what intellectual property law seeks to do is to protect the rights of rights holders, in the sense that there are a number of IP rights, but I think the main important ones that people know about are trademarks, patents, and copyrights. So what a trademark is to protect is your name, your logo, your brand. For example, your Pare, Fusion 360, or Adusei. That's what trademarks would want. A patent would protect an invention, so a technological invention. And for the purposes of our discussion of copyrights, we will seek to protect the literary work, a musical work, an artistic work, and so on and so forth. So if you write a book, if you take a photo, if you make music, it's copyright that protects it. Now what happens is that these rights give one an exclusive use of it for a duration of time as specified under the law. For the purpose of the discussion, copyrights last for 70 years plus the life of the author. So it's a very long protection. And interestingly enough, in Ghana or at least across the world, you don't need to register copyrights to get that right. It's inherent. But it's always good to register it. I'm sure we'll come to talk about that.
So Victoria, if someone copies your photograph, what are some of the remedies? What are some of the things you can do about it under Ghanaian law?
Okay, so what you would typically do is you write an infringement notice or a cease and desist letter. That puts that person or the infringer on notice that you own the mark and you are seeking to protect your rights. Now, if that doesn't work, for example, then we then decide to go to court. Yes, those are some of the legal remedies under the law to protect your rights.
What can the court order if you're successful in the case?
So some of the things that the court can order are damages, delivery up. So for example, the amount of money that the infringer has made through the use of your photo, the court can order that. The court can also order an injunction. So for example, if you've taken a picture in a secret or a private wedding, for example, which is supposed to come out sometime later, and you can see that the infringer is trying to use that or is trying to bring out the photo before the time, you can go to court and ask for an injunction. Doesn't always work in Ghana, but I mean, it's a remedy that is available under the law, and that's something that you should be thinking about.
I think it's through educational stuff like this that would let the word out to let people know that stuff like this in Ghana would be taken serious by people who infringe on other people's intellectual properties.
Victoria, the type of photography Yao is doing is very often of public spaces. And quite often there's a perception in the public that just because you've taken a picture of a public space or a public event, there's no copyright. And then the second issue is Yao may post his photos on social media. And therefore, some people think, oh, well, if it's on social media, I can use it. It's available for the world at large. What would you say? How does copyright work in those two situations?
Yes, so the fact that you take a picture of a public event or of a cultural event doesn't mean that you've lost your copyright. Now, there are some exceptions in the Copyright Act, but those are very narrowly interpreted. And so it's very important to check that. It doesn't mean that you've lost your copyright at all. And as I was saying, there are two separate rights: the right to be credited and the right to be paid compensation or to be given monetary value for it. Interestingly enough, in the law, you can never lose your right to be credited. So, for example, no one can say, I am using your photo, but I won't credit you, even if you not actually be accepted under law. That's how that works. Now, in terms of social media, the fact that you put your pictures on Facebook, on Instagram, doesn't mean that you lose your copyright. But it's very important to read the terms and conditions of these social media that you use as well. Most of them, at least as far as I'm aware, don't take your rights away from you. They have what we call like a license. So you give them permission to display and redisplay your photo. Doesn't mean that you lost your copyrights.
So, Stephen, when you are entering negotiations over your photos, generally that seems to be a much more controlled setting where you're essentially in a contractual negotiation over commissioned work. It's unlike where photos have been taken over public events or they're going out on social media. These are commissioned by individuals, perhaps people who are going to get married, etc. What are some of the contractual challenges you face when you are in those negotiations?
The key thing is for it to be stated clearly who owns the pictures, what the user or the client, you're right. Some of the challenges we've been facing, I'll mention the usage. So someone comes to you, I need a picture for a billboard for this product. So you charge accordingly, only to find out that they're using it for so many other things. So that's one challenge we face. And number two, they can even go on to give the pictures to other people also to use. So when you see it and you say, oh no, I got it from this person. So these are some of the challenges that in my field I face. Apart from that, most of the international clients will come to you with specifics. We want you to do, so they start by telling you about their project. We are doing ABCD and we need pictures of EFGH to tell that story. we want you to take pictures at these locations. These are the contact people. Contact them and take the pictures. We want pictures similar to these. And when you take the pictures, we want to have full rights to be able to use the pictures for anything that we want to use them for. This is a very simple and straightforward, I accept, or I'll modify this bit, or stuff like that. Then you go on and do the assignment. Over here is a different picture like I painted earlier on. So when you put them side by side, you see that there's a huge contrast. Someone who's trying to scale down, make the project look smaller so that you don't charge a lot. And someone who is telling you, even beyond this project, I still want to use the pictures for anything I haven't thought about. So there's a big difference, and that's a challenge that we face here.
And presumably, people come to you with varying objectives. Sometimes they're coming to you to keep control of the images. So if it's a very private wedding and they just want a few shots for the family, and maybe it's a celebrity, they actually want to keep it out of the media and social media. Yes. So I want to bring that back to an amazingly innovative area of photography that you're involved in, which is drone photography, becoming much more popular these days. I've just come back from a holiday where I was sitting in a hotel room. In the morning, I'd open the curtains and lay back down to enjoy the view. And this drone flew up to the window. And the window was not far from the bed. And filmed me. Literally lying in bed. Thankfully, I had clothes on. And the sheets were up. But what? That could have been... And it really felt... I'd never... I'm actually a privacy lawyer. Yeah. But I've never really experienced what it means to have an invasion of privacy. So you as a drone photographer, and really one of the, groundbreaking drone photographers in Ghana, how do you take that responsibility, and what are some of the issues that may arise when you're filming in these incredible locations?
It goes back to the moral stance again. It's not everything that you take that you portray. One could be national security issues. One could be invasion of privacy, that somebody's just hanging around loose and you just fly around and just capturing them. So it boils back down to moral integrity. You can be a scandalous photographer because you have a drone. You can go and, unless you are hired specifically by the government to go and shoot a certain thing, then that way. But when it comes to drone photography, like you were talking about, it's quite an innovative new way of capturing things that actually has eased a lot of work for us as photographers. Right. Because we used to climb trees to get aerial shots, or find the tallest building to get aerial shots. I have a little story to tell here. Probably 2011, 12, thereabout, when one of these main high-rises around Tetekwashi was being built. Yeah. And I've just gotten a camera, and I'm so excited, but I couldn't get aerial shots. Yeah. Being on that level, unless you're in a plane, could you want to fly a plane just to take, or a helicopter? No. So I had to climb, it was a 15-story building. Wow. And in the beginning, I would say I'm stealing myself to go take photos. So that place is, you're not allowed to go and climb somebody's building and you have to climb 14, 15 stories just to get a shot. Drones have eased that to milliseconds. You just power it up and you're up there and you're getting the nice views and stuff that I've been able to shoot and bring to you. But yeah, it is a very innovative space, but it has to be done with a bit of conscience.
Victoria, some of the security or civil aviation issues that may arise, do you have a sense of what the restrictions are?
Yes, so you can't fly a drone past a certain limit, just past a certain height. That's one thing that you need to take into consideration. There are certain areas in Accra that you can't actually shoot.
Yeah.
So, for example, the Black Star Square, Ministry of Defense. So, even though that might be very picturesque photos there, you have to bear in mind that you can't actually do that.
Now, before you fly with the DJI drones that we have now, you have to actually register who you are before you fly
That's
and
permission.
assume responsibility for anything that happens. So I can't just give my drone to somebody to go and fly. It's in my name.
Yes.
It's like a license to fly. And the moment you fly, it will tell you that you've exceeded a certain point that if you fly over, you assume responsibility.
Right.
And it would warn you the places you can't fly. You can't even power your drone up in a Jengano, in certain places on the flight path. Anywhere in those places. So there's one whereas you have to be conscious of, and there's one that they would leave it to chance for you to be conscious of. It's already jammed. You can't fly there. So on your drone, it will give you the no-fly areas and stuff as well.
Some of the challenges would be unmarked security installations.
Yes.
Unmarked. There are places in Accra and other places where it's for the security agencies. It's unmarked. Signboard there says school.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yet, when you fly, they capture your drone.
Yes.
And I was commissioned to shoot some projects, and it was by chance that someone mentioned. So when I got there, the building across the street was for the security agencies.
Right.
So I went there, knocked. They were shocked, like how I even got to know. I said, yeah, I have this letter to photograph this building for the World Bank, and I know that you're here. I'm just letting you know that at no point will I face my camera towards you. I'm shooting this direction. So, okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yes, it's a lot.
Yes.
It's a lot. And sometimes you mentioned the airport, for instance. To shoot Villaggio or to shoot Accra Mall or something like that, you're directly in the path.
Yeah, flight path.
So
Yeah.
you have to call the tower, just like an airplane, because the registration number they give us at the aviation place is the same they would give you if you bought a new plane.
Yeah, an actual plane.
Yes.
Yeah.
So before you take off around that area, after you fill the form on DJI saying, I have permission to fly in this area, you have to call the tower. So I was in communication with the guy. They will give you time. At this time you can fly. If for any reason you can't fly, you wait. I couldn't fly. Okay, wait. Now you can fly. Like that kind of thing. If you miss this, then you get into a lot of troubles.
Yeah.
Whether privacy, security, like anything that Yao has mentioned. Yes. You
And that's huge because imagine making a mistake and crashing a plane.
yeah.
Can you take that burden on yourself? It's like,
right in the middle of the
Yeah,
park.
yeah,
The
yeah.
airport is right in the middle of
exactly.
town. Wow, we've had an amazing discussion, and it's a real privilege to have such experienced experts in the photography field with us, and legal experts too. Thank you. So I think to wrap up, it would be just great if we can just reflect on some of your key observations, recommendations for young photographers, for those who are coming into the industry looking to monetize what they're doing, protect their works. Yeah, let's start with you. What would you be your two key recommendations?
So my two key recommendations for this would be first to know that there are copyright laws that work in the country, and I think everybody shouldn't be shy to utilize that. There are ways I feel we probably find ways for people who think it's so cumbersome to do to get it done through our association. And also, the last bit I'll add to it is make sure that you protect your stuff yourself. And it also has to do with speaking up about it. Because if you don't speak about it, what happens is that people continue to take it for granted.
Raising awareness about the fact that Ghana does have effective copyright laws, protecting your materials. We talked earlier about watermarks and a fascinating discussion about how you do that. Stephen talked about metadata. Yeah. I didn't even know some of the things you could put inside the digital to prove that it's your image. And really just building awareness around these issues. That's fascinating. Thank you. So Stephen, turning to you, what would be your key takeaways and recommendations?
First of all, I would say it's very important we come together as an association. We come together.
And you're the head of Ghana's...
An executive, yes. The Association of Professional Photographers, Ghana. APPG, yes. So if we don't come together, then we can't get, let's say, centralized information. If we are scattered, you don't know what's happening. You wouldn't know what Yao has been through in trying to, combat some of the issues that he's been facing. And secondly, as an association, we have backing lawyers on retainer. When the unfortunate thing happens, it's not then that you're now going to look for who can do this, who can do that. And lawyers, I see them like doctors with specializations. So someone with, who specializes in IP laws, it's not the same as someone who's done, let's say, property, commercial and other things, right? So you would want someone who has experience in that, defending you. So it's very important that we have qualified, knowledgeable lawyers in our field.
Yeah. And what's great now in Ghana is that there are a number of law firms, a number of professionals, a number of practitioners, who are specializing in IP and rebuilding expertise. So, there are a number of firms and people that photographers and other types of artists can go to, which is good. Ghana is improving in specialization. This is a really good thing. Thank you so much, Stephen. You're welcome. Victoria is one of those specialists. Victoria, what would your key takeaways be?
So I think my key takeaways are, as a photographer, you must know your rights. And I think from this conversation, we've seen that a lot of effort goes into taking pictures. So from running away from inhabitants, climbing 15 flights of stairs, having to have your drone being shot down by whatever. You have to make sure that you know your rights. Now, by knowing your rights, other people can also respect it. And that's what we tend to find a lot. That's even with these companies who seek to infringe. The people who they are defending their rights don't seem to know what it is about. Right. And then the other thing, of course, is because you are putting your work out there, make sure that you have agreements that protects them. Make sure that the clauses and the provisions and in the agreements are not seeking to take all your rights away from you. And that's one of the most important things in a contract for copyright work and the work that you're doing. Now, as I was saying, copyright is automatic or it's inherent as in itself. But there's nothing wrong with taking the extra step of registering it. And in Ghana, you can't do that. You can't register your mark. So assuming that you now find out that someone has infringed on it, take the step. Take the step and go to that person and say, listen, I've taken so much effort into taking this shot. Please compensate me, credit me for the work that I have done. And of course, if you write an infringement notice, you write a copyright notice and sees and this thing doesn't work, the court is an avenue that you can take. Don't be afraid of lawyers.
So we've had some really key takeaways and recommendations on how to protect your rights, how to monetize them effectively, and also how to be prepared if things go wrong. And it doesn't always have to involve running up to court. It can be done through effective protection and just sometimes taking advice to get to the right solution. It's been a real pleasure to have Yao Pare, Stephen Adusei, Victoria Devon on this edition of the Equality Law Podcast. Thank you very much.